Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the Heart of Agile Boulder. Um, I'm going to quickly go over what Heart of Agile is, just as a refresher for everyone. I think most people here have been to a Heart of Agile meetup before, but for those that haven't or haven't been in a while, I'll just do a little refresher there. And then today, instead of doing a presentation like we sometimes do, and then a group discussion that's kind of targeted, we're going to do a lean coffee. So I'm also going to cover what that is if you're not familiar with that, and we'll dive into that using the Easy Retro interface, the web page. So Heart of Agile Boulder is, or Heart of Agile is a movement founded by one of the original signatories of the Agile Manifesto, a guy named Alistair Coburn. So a few years ago, he decided to, say, Agile has become this really complicated, big market thing. How do we strip it down to what really matters? And he focused on four imperatives, which are to collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. And then the heart of Agile, the people and the communication is at the heart of it. So if you focus on those things, then you're doing Agile right, and that's what our movement is about. So we do meetups and talks that span those things, and we try to make sure we're incorporating those imperatives wherever we can. So that's Heart of Agile. You can read a lot about it online. It's meant to be very concise. So a lot of the documentation you'll find about it are very short, PDFs and documentation, very easy to digest. And they offer certifications if you're interested in that as well. Okay, and then in terms of we'll talk about this at the end, but I'll go ahead and give a teaser now. We are going to be shifting Heart of Agile very soon. This meetup, this is one of the many meetups under the umbrella of Agile Denver. If you go to Agile Denver website, there's a ton of different meetups. You can find different ones. Some of them are very big, some are small, some of them focus on Kanban. This one focuses on Heart of Agile. Some of them focus on coaching. So you can find meetups that kind of fit your flavor. David will actually be moving to a different city. He's moving entirely, and so he's going to be stepping away from the meetup host role. He founded this meetup a couple years ago, and then I stepped in as co-host shortly into that. So we're also going to be coming back to that and discussing the future of this meetup. Those of you that are attending, you can kind of weigh in on what you'd like to see if we continue the meetup. What direction would you like to see? But we thought today lean coffee is a super easy way to host a meetup, so we figured we'll go with that for now. David, do you have anything you want to add before we go into the lean coffee?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, but one note real quick. Since you did mention the Agile Manifesto, if anyone's not aware, it did turn 21 years old within the last week. So it's been 21 years that the Agile Manifesto has been around. So just kind of an interesting note there of how long this has been going on.
Yeah, Ginny, we'll buy it a drink. Yeah, Alistair made a similar joke on LinkedIn that it's now old enough to drink the manifesto itself. Okay. And everyone probably already knows, but as a reminder, if you don't know, you can go to agilemanifesto.org to look at the 90s style website, copyrighted 2001, 21 years ago, that has the actual Agile Manifesto along with the 12 principles and a little bit of other information there, but also very concise. Okay, let's go into the Easy Retro. Easy Retro board to host the lean coffee. Let me start sharing my screen. And I think we'll have, I don't know how many minutes we want to give to the start to, let's see. All right, let me make sure I'm sharing the right one here.
You muted yourself.
All right, when I shared, it automatically muted, and I can't unmute once I'm shared. Give me a second to figure this out.
Let's see where those settings are, maybe.
Okay. All right, I think we're good to go. I had it clicked on share tab audio, so it overrode my microphone. There we go. All right, so this is the Easy Retro board, and we had an actual lean coffee a few months ago with this meetup. So you can see some of the discussed items over on the right side. The way that a lean coffee will work is we can all add items to this board. I'm going to put a link in the chat so everyone can get to it. There we go. So you go ahead and click on that. You should be able to see that, and you should be able to click the plus button on the left side on the to discuss column, and then type in a topic. And then you can do Command Enter, Control Enter, whatever you do to post it. And then what we're going to do once we have topics listed is we're going to vote on them and just start discussing them in the order of most voted. And everyone will have a number of votes, not just one. So you can double up on a single or spread out your votes. In terms of topics, anything you guys want to talk about. So you have some struggle on your team of, hey, I'm a product owner, scrum master at the same time. How am I supposed to handle that? Write that down if that's a struggle for you. Or I'm getting an MBA, I'm not sure what to do next. Right, whatever topic you want to add, go ahead and add it to the board, and we can talk about it. And I'll put a timer up on the board here, and you should be able to see it on your screen, but it'll also be on the shared screen. So a 4-minute timer is now counting down. You can add in anything you want to discuss, and then we'll vote on it at the end of that time. Oh, by the way, I should have also mentioned, if you want to run your own lean coffee, it's like my favorite way to run meetings. If you have a community of practice or a group of scrum masters or coaches or whatever, Easy Retro is completely free. Just create an account and create a board, and you can do this super easy. Okay. So this one, I'll ask that whoever wrote it can kind of kick it off, and then we'll talk about it. And I'll put a little timer on it. This is also part of the lean coffee structure. We'll put a 5-minute timer on each. And then at the end of those 5 minutes, we can choose whether or not we want to continue talking or move to the next topic. So everything is naturally time boxed. I wrote this one, so I'll kick it off. And let me add the timer for 5. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. If you're a scrum master for an individual team and that's all you're doing, is that really enough? For me, I haven't really found that to be enough. But if you're just a scrum master, not an individual contributor, how many teams can you reasonably support? I think the answer varies a lot, but I'm curious what people think about that. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I have thoughts, but it's only from a academic or hypothetical view, so I don't really want to throw that out there without the real world practice on it. But if I was to use, the experience I had as the waterfall world, you definitely can probably get, I would say, normal teams. Are we talking about 5 to 7 or 10 to 11, somewhere in there?
So normal size, let's say 5 to 9 total people.
Yeah.
I think as long as they're able to not have no conflict as far as like scheduling times when people meet, or if there's like any scrums type of things going on. But if it's just you being in that supportive role and removing impediments, I mean, why can't you do 3 or 4 teams and manage? You don't want to overload, because then if you got too many impediments coming on, you're gonna be running around. Then before you know it, all the free time you had, you're not gonna have.
Interesting. I would have said 2.
Yeah, I would say that it depends on the maturity of the teams. Like if you have very immature teams, then you could probably do 1 or 2. But if you have pretty mature teams, you can get 3 to 4. At least that's what I've seen. So
That's a really good point there, the maturity.
Yeah, that's where I lean toward as well, Jeff. I've worked with really, teams that are just starting out, really don't know what they're doing, and I'm full-time on that team. Really, it's just the scrum master, kind of as an overall manager as well. And 1 team was enough. And then I've also, quickly pivoted them to working pretty smoothly. And then I took on 3 extra teams and did 4 teams all at the same time. They were all working pretty smoothly. So yeah, I think maturity of the team varies, makes it vary a ton. For me, though, I don't think I've ever done more than 4 for And that wasn't really an overload, but that's just the max I've done.
Does
Yeah,
that
and
include having an agile coach at all by any chance?
I don't see anybody here. Maybe David, maybe Alex. But I was thinking of it from waterfall days that I could usually balance two projects. One, you had to tell me which one was more important, and whatever time was left, got the nibbles for the third one.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, it's been 2 teams seems to be the ideal number for me. I've done 3 teams fairly successfully as long as at least one of those teams is fairly mature. But when I've had 4 teams in the past, which is the most I've ever worked with, it really got to where basically all I was doing was facilitating meetings. I just didn't have room on my calendar to drive any change or any improvement. So that's been my experience.
What would cause that? Is it just because there's too many projects going on, or is it new in the organization? Like, what would lead to having a scrum master in charge of 4 teams, 3 or 4 teams?
Oftentimes people are not scrum masters are in short supply. People don't want to be scrum masters. So I've seen that in companies, or I work in government contracting. Sometimes that's bid, where they'll have a single agile coach serve as the overall agile lead of the program, a small program of like 50 people, but then also be the scrum master of all the teams there. And that just to make it work within the funding of the program.
And I've run into that seems to come up a lot when the organization is thinking of Scrum Master as team lead, where they're not really as plugged into Agile as they should be. It's just a translation of new terminology for a project you're already doing. You're a team lead for 4 different projects. Okay, here.
It almost sounds like that question that's like 3 or 4 more down about best way to organize when people try to incorporate Scrum, but they still have a water-based mentality or waterfall mentality, and then they're coming to some kind of hybrid, but it's like, okay, you're not even utilizing anything in the appropriate method. It's terrible.
Yeah, the time I ended up doing 4 teams, it was simply because we acquired a new organization that didn't have any scrum masters, and so until we could get some hired, people had to pick up the slack, and unfortunately that fell on me for a lot of it. So but we kept it going until we could get someone hired.
That's good. It was temporary though.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at the end of those 5 minutes. Let's do a thumb vote. So everyone's got their cameras on, but you can always type it in as well. So thumbs up will be continue talking about the subject. Thumbs down is move on to the next topic, and middle is you don't really care, do whatever. Defer to other people. And we'll vote on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I think most of them will go down. Oh, Ken, you actually used your little icon. Nice.
Yeah, I couldn't find one. Good for you, Ken.
Yeah, there should be a reaction at the bottom, and there's only a thumbs up. But if you go to the dot, there's a...
Oh, okay. There's another batch in there. All right.
What'd you call me?
A thumbs down. That's what I called you.
All right, so we'll go to the next one. If I can find this to move over. No, don't merge it. All right, let's move this one over. All right, so the next one is, I like the typo there. Our Scrum Master is impacted negatively. Who wants to kick this one off?
Yes, that one was mine. Our Scrum Master is impacted negatively if they are believed to not be technically sound or competent as a dev team. And I share that just coming from a perspective where I've been going through coaching, and I got my Scrum Master certification through SAFe, but that just took a lot of studying and no real practical application yet. But I have participated on some virtual hackathons and a couple military veteran things, and they'll use language that I'm not quite familiar with, but none of them really familiar with Agile and Scrum, so I can help in that that. But I'm wondering what happens the minute I step away. Like, are people like, don't talk to that guy. He don't even know the first thing about coding, or does it even matter? I mean, that's not my lane. That's not what's expected of me. So what do you guys think about that? If they're not really technically sound when it comes to development, coding, and all that other program language.
My opinion would be that, yeah, probably you may well be getting laughed at in the break room, but I'm basing that on a lot of business analysts or people who come in from the business side of the house who happen to know how to talk to techies. I'm a techie who happens to know how to talk to the business, and it's really been a tough sell to the business side. Yes, I'm really a business analyst and can do that. But one of the things I found that gives me credibility is that because I've coded at some point, I may not be up on exactly what the language is for the particular time, but I've always had a standing thing with the tech team. Come tell me what's wrong. I don't, as in at least in a limited fashion, but come tell me what's wrong in technical terms. I doubt if you'll be able to. I think I'll probably pick up on it, and so it's helped me bridge the gap a little bit. Yes, I think that there probably is a challenge in not being viewed as technically savvy. I've been surprised over the last year or so. The question of what language do I use, and English is not what they're looking for.
Sure.
But the good news is that the last time I did my alphabet soup, it was about 2.5 pages long. So the more things repeat, the more they become the same.
All right.
My view is I don't think it necessarily negatively impacts. Like, yes, you might get people talking about like you're not an individual contributor, but if that's your role, then that's not the expectation. And you can make that clear with your team when you start, that you're there to be the scrum master and you're not working stories for the team. You're there to remove impediments. But it does help to know what the team's working on and what their impediments are on a more personal level. So if you can actually, get a development environment up and see where the challenges are of like, oh, deployments take way too long, or when I merge code, this is the pain that they're actually feeling. You can experience it. That can be helpful. But if you're listening carefully, then you should pick up on those things in retrospectives and along the way. But it can give you an additional insight, but I don't think it negatively impacts you that much.
Yeah, I just had a thought here. It's not actually Scrum Master, it would be product owner, but when I go into the garage, the folks who help me are not mechanics. They may have been at one time, but they're not. They bridge the gap, and as long as they're doing that back and forth, then they need to know a little bit about what's happening down in the bay, but probably not in grand detail. As long as they can listen to what's being said and talk to the guys, talk to the mechanics in their language and back and forth. So that's, I think that's part of the reason I get street cred, because I've at least coded at least once.
I know, like on the hackathons, one of the things that I believe, from my perception, that worked to my advantage was just sharing. I share what my role is and what I'm there for, and but then also talking very vaguely, giving general ideas, because obviously I'm not there. These guys don't know Scrum, but I'm just there to witness I shared what other teams were doing and stuff like that. But it's like, hey, look, y'all own your own team. I'm just giving you perspective, and if do whatever you do.
Yeah, I'm here to learn.
I know my role, that I am. That's it. I'm just here, like, okay, sure. Well, you guys are the experts. I've always been that kind of guy too, though. If you're the expert in that lane, then you rank. You got the rank, right? Like, that's your lane. So yeah.
Yes, as someone who was a developer for quite a while before I became a Scrum Master and then Agile coach, I would say it's sometimes a disadvantage to have that much experience, because when the developers get into talking about like how they're approaching a problem, my brain starts wanting to get into that solutioning mode instead of the coaching mode. So yeah, just thought I'd throw in that perspective.
Put me in, coach, put me in. Oh wait, that's not my job anymore.
Thank God. That's actually how I got to become a BA. I had trained up on one more stack, and when after they got me started being a business analyst, product owner instead, and I had a chance to go back, and I kept falling asleep during the presentations for tech stuff, and I said, well, it looks like I need to stay on this side of the table.
All right, well, let's do a vote. We're past the 5 minutes on this one. So again, thumbs up is continue. Thumbs down is move on to the next topic. All right, 1, 2, 3. Pretty much indifferent.
Yeah.
Down. So we'll move on to the next one. All right, next one is a good way to separate PM, BA, SM roles. I'm guessing this was Jeff. Go ahead.
No, actually, it was me.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's been interesting because I'm marketing myself as a BA, but it never fails. There's always the other two roles in there in a lot of cases, and sometimes it's a lack of understanding, but sometimes it's how they see the work getting done. So, any ideas, product or project? Both, but project would be the one I run into most often. Asking for 3 salaries seems rude. So
Yeah.
what do I do here?
I can't answer that question because that's kind of where I'm at. So
Oh, so it's what you're doing right now?
yeah, I am a group manager
Hmm.
for a team, which is part project manager, part product owner, part scrum master, part team lead, part,
So how do you keep those hats separate?
it's fun. Sometimes I just try to, usually the way I think about it is, what's the dumbest question I can ask to make people think about going in the direction I want them to go down whatever hat I'm trying to put on.
Okay.
So that way they take it at a 180 degree from where they're going, and that's
so much for street credibility.
yeah. I don't have a problem with being the dumb guy in the room. So
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. In fact, asking questions is just part of the job. So okay, so you're just kind of adapting to whichever role that you're playing for that moment, and then asking the question in light of that framework, in light of that role.
yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, so I've been a group manager for about 14 years at the company I'm at. So
okay.
But I was the one who spearheaded Scrum on like 3 or 4 teams about 8 or 9 years ago. So everything was waterfall and it was sucky. And so, but a lot of people, I'll wait because my question's coming down. So
Okay.
it's just.
David asked something in the chat there. PM, product or product?
Project. Yeah.
Project.
Mm-hmm. Usually project, sometimes product, but usually when it's bothering me, it's project, because
So
it's
for
a
me,
different way of thinking for me anyway.
Okay. At least in my industry, we don't have business analysts. We just have product owners and scrum masters, and the separation being product is the kind of technical product side, and scrum masters are the process side. And they're both leads, but in those kind of different hats, and that's the easy way to separate them. And if you are a single person in those roles, it can be conflicting, but that's sometimes the way it is, usually temporary. But I don't have experience with the BA role and how that relates to it. Does anybody else know about that or separate it?
Yeah, I went ahead and got a product owner as my first certification, because that fits a lot better with what I was doing as a business analyst. So, or product designer, I think was the first job I had that did this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. As I've worked with business analysts in the IT side, and they fit closer to a product owner than a scrum master or a project manager.
I don't care how you do it, but this is what needs to happen when it's done. You know.
Yeah, I've done the joint role of project manager / scrum master before. I don't know that there is a good way to do that as a combo role. They don't really go together. One of the things that I've seen also when hiring people, helping do interviews to hire people, is that the trend of traditional project managers applying for scrum master roles has become increasing over the last few years, as there are less project managers and more scrum master roles. And I think that's also confusing recruiters, companies that are doing hiring but don't necessarily fully understand Agile and what it is. For me personally, I would never, I'm not looking to leave my current role, but if I were, I would never look at a role where they're trying to combine these together personally, just because I am so committed to doing things in an Agile way. And I don't see these kind of combo roles as indicating that the company has a good understanding of what Agile is.
Okay.
So Linda, I don't, but there's this, I'm looking for this slideshow that I participated in. It was part of the Change Management Institute. And they gave us a talk on how they were using SAFe in a change management role, and how to be kind of like more involved when you're using Kanban, and not just on a total program level, but then on a team level. And they showed the product owner and the business analyst and a business consultant sitting there working on the product backlog, and that was their focus. And then the business analysts were the ones that were trying to convey that message over to their teams and to the scrum masters. And like they had all these pretty little images. If I find that slideshow, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Because and then I'll find my notes on it, because it was a real interesting method that they were going over. And yeah, I was really kind of impressed by it from a change management perspective, is how I approached it. I didn't really look at it from the SAFe, but it might.
Well, that fits.
Insight.
That fits, because when I think BA, it used to be analysis. In fact, for a long time, it was considered a clerical role, but these days it's more of the change analyst, or the change agent rather. One standing there in the middle and saying, "Yeah, we need to go this way." And they, come on, here's how, sort of. Okay. Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you, Ken.
I actually did just find it. Let me see. Can I share it? I'm going to see if I can put it in chat so you can just have it.
Yeah, go ahead and paste it in the chat. And since we're at the end of the 5 minutes, let's vote on this one if you want to continue or move to the next one. Okay, and do your thumbs or type it out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. And actually, we have a tie for 2 votes on the next one. I'm gonna skip down one because it's kind of related here. Best way to get the organization to recognize that they're not true Agile or Scrum, and just using the tools is not good enough. Who wants to kick this one off?
That was my question. Because I feel like, having driven Scrum and Agile into some of my teams, then the company thought it was a great idea and, bought Rally, and then now moved to Azure DevOps, and they're all using the tools, but it seems like everyone's still given roles that are cross, and then they're not really following the Agile manifesto or the methodology. It's all about using the tools and specific meetings that have to happen and all kinds of things that are very, very process oriented across the company, versus letting teams. I liked waterfall better because each team got to kind of figure out what worked best. Now that we're Agile, every team has to work exactly the same, and that's just wrong. So I don't know.
One thing I've seen here is, it sounds like there's not a lot of empowerment, and that may be like a big issue there. The teams aren't really empowered to do what they need. And we had that on one program we were consulting with a couple of years ago, and one thing we were able to do was convince the management of the program to just get one team lined up the way that we wanted. And so we requested that we got kind of autonomy empowerment of one team that we were coaching. And we started there. I said, hey, we're going to run things differently on this team. We're going to structure it differently so that we had all the disciplines on a single team, because they're also very siloed. So there are a lot of things that weren't working right. And we were like, let's we came up with basically a way to prototype it. And then if we proved good results from that, then we would get management buy-in to scale it. So that might be something you could do, is see if there's some way that you could get approval to prototype something at a smaller scale. But again, it comes down to empowerment and management kind of hands-off approach that you'd have to get approval.
Kind of proving out a single small win to then grow that. Yeah, I've done that. That's how I got Agile started in the first place. So
yeah, this is a interesting topic for me, because I actually just submitted a talk for Agile 2022 on how Agile is not one size fits all, and really talking about how you can't just pick up a framework, any framework, and implement it, follow the rules, and suddenly you're Agile. But you have to be able to adapt by company and even by team in order to really get all of the benefits from it. So yeah, this is a huge thing. I see companies doing this a lot. I've worked for companies where it was, okay, you have to do Scrum, no one can do Kanban, and all of that kind of stuff. And I figured out how to do Kanban on a Scrum board and make it work, because my team needed to be Kanban. So yeah, it's a difficult thing.
It's not that hard. Both are okay. Gee whiz. All Ford parts are all Chevy parts, huh?
And just a note, Alex, I've submitted the talk. It hasn't been accepted yet. So, but if you're prophesying that, cool. I'll give.
No, I am. Yeah, you're giving
cool.
it.
One of the ways I can usually tell almost very quickly that they're not really Agile yet is that the company insists, or the team insists, on having either high-level stories or low-level stories, and we can't have both. And that tells me a lot of times you're not quite getting this. It's okay. It's always tempting to take the high-level story and break it down a lot finer, and that you don't want to quite do that yet, because we're not ready to do anything about it. Does anybody else run into that?
I'm trying to find, again, I don't know if it helps. And please just be straight up, like, Ken, shut up, it's off topic. I don't know better. So if I am rambling in the wrong direction, or it's like not pertinent, I can take it, let me know. But like the first thing that comes to my mind is the only training that I've actually received officially, well, there's two. One, there's a military Scrum Master course I went through the Naval Warfighter Center, and then I also did the SAFE training as a product owner, product manager, and then also a Scrum Master. But one of the things that I appreciated in there was that they had an assessment that you can do, and as you're doing the SAFE assessment, it would identify questions that you could do at any level, where, hey, are you demonstrating these factors? How well are you doing your system demo? And are you doing it at a team level? And then if you're going to be an organization, how are you doing at each one of those levels? If you're going to have just one department be safe, or the entire enterprise be safe, or excuse me, Agile, then you can adjust your assessment accordingly. I think that might be one way to help, like have a real talk, like, look, here's an assessment we rolled, here's our measurements. And, I mean, I know we have a lot of good thoughts, but we're missing the intent behind this program. And, this is where we're kind of headed if we keep this up. This is not true Agile form. And in fact, if you hire somebody, you hire a Scrum Master, all you're doing is looking for a project manager. And, you don't want a project manager in a Scrum role. So that would be like my first opinion in regards to that.
I haven't hit what you were talking about, Linda, but one of the things I was thinking is I was just rereading the question, like how to get the organization to recognize they're not true Agile / Scrum. It's like, okay, we're in the Heart of Agile Meetup. Why not leverage that? Heart of Agile is a great model to be able to talk to leaders, to understand like what the core components of Agile is, that it's about a mindset, not about the tools or frameworks. And if you can point out, okay, it's collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. If they aren't able to customize the way they're implementing Agile as a team, then you're not going to ever be able to hit that improve aspect of it. And that might be something to be able to at least get a foot in the door to start the conversation with your leaders to help them understand the Agile mindset being different than using Agile tools.
I do like that.
That is a good focus, David. Yeah, as far as I know, there's no Heart of Agile assessment you can do, but you can just ask questions along those 4 lines of, does the team feel empowered to collaborate and improve regularly, and where are their weaknesses in delivering? You can ask some specific questions around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice way to bring it in, David. All right, so we're at the end of those 5 minutes. So thumbs up if you want to keep going on this topic. Otherwise, we'll move on 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, we'll move to the next one. The next one I wrote, which is about metrics. I used to ask this in interviews when I was hiring Agile coaches and team leads of what's their favorite Agile metric to share with stakeholders, within a team, internal stakeholders, and also external. And I was curious what you all think as people that are very familiar with Agile. If you were to kind of show an external stakeholder, for instance, that yep, the team is doing really well, we're meeting our commitments, or we're succeeding as a team, or we're not. What kind of metrics would you show? And then what would you track internally that you wouldn't share with an external stakeholder that you think are important metrics to keep tabs on?
I think that probably for the external stakeholders, one of the important measurements is we're delivering something. So if there's a way to show that we met what we said we were going to do for this sprint time after time after time, that might be one way to go. I don't know whether that would be number of stories hit or the lowest number of stories pushed back.
Or like a demo?
Well, not a demo per se, but if you were going at the Agile stuff for about a quarter, that would be enough for 6 or 8 sprints. And in each sprint, the idea is that you get something that you're going to deliver, and at the end of that sprint, you've either delivered it or you haven't. There's always room for change in things, but and it seems to me that having a kind of a record of doing that might be a way to show the value involved in it. We're making promises and hitting them because we're able to take smaller bites.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if this is really a good way to put it, but kind of sandbag what you think you can get done and then show that you can do more.
Yeah,
it's kind of works out really well versus over scheduling and then not meeting it usually. And that's and really for external stakeholders, I always find that they're much happier to just be able to come in and see what's going on and have a voice in the changes that need to happen versus getting something 3 months, 4 months down the line, and then them go, oh, wait a minute, I had a new idea, or, oh, those things are more important to them than what you're getting done week in and week out. So, but yeah, that's from my experience empirically. I've just found that if I underschedule my teams every sprint, they actually do more than what I schedule them for. Than if I overschedule them for a sprint, they'll get less done. And doing that continuously usually proves that things are working.
There is a human tendency to overplan. And I've learned that lesson many times in like PI planning and safe events, the quarterly planning, where, I leave a buffer for every single sprint or iteration, and then I leave the last one just completely empty, like just add in buffers in a ton of different places, and then you end up using that doing something. Who knows? Scope is always going to grow as understanding grows, and that's just general. That's always going to happen. And then yeah, you can't promise too little because then the customer is going to balk at that. So you have to find a good balance, but definitely err on the side of promising a conservative amount. But for me, I haven't found much success, and I don't really think it works with saying like, hey, we got our features done, or we got our story points done, we're on track for the sprint. We actually have to show it of like, hey, here's our working thing, and then the customer will say, cool, that's valuable to me, and I have that, and my end user are using it and they like it. I have feedback on it. But until they actually get to see it or use it, then it has no value to them.
Yeah, I would say for external, like showing that something's delivered is good, but I would say also making sure that we're showing why we're delivering what we're delivering, so that they know that we're delivering the things that customers are asking for, and like what the value add is for it, I think is important to do, because my teams can deliver stuff, but if we're working on the wrong thing, it doesn't really matter, and our customers aren't going to care. Internally, I would say showing that they are either improving or at least plateauing in terms of how they deliver. So like if they're early stages working together, that they are improving iteratively, like sprint after sprint, in terms of how they work, whether it's measuring throughput or velocity or whatever it is, until they find what that right amount is, and then that they're actually holding steady there. Overall would be kind of the internal communication I would talk about.
Has anybody ever just like asked the like have a list, be like, okay, what's the most important to the teams decide on what they wanted to do, and then maybe the product owner goes with the customer to see what they want to see? Because the only thing I can think of from a guy, if I had money and I was paying for something, yeah, I'm gonna want to know if it works, like where we at, and what am I investing my money into the next sprint, and do I agree with where that money's going? Like how would those conversations happen, or do they?
I think it would be the product owner working with the customer to keep to keep the list prioritized, and hopefully ideally you'd have a couple of sprints lined up ahead of time.
Yeah, in my industry, it's government contracts, so they will clearly say, I want this done, and here's your requirements for it. And they're being looser and looser with that when they realize they can't really dictate everything up front. That kind of puts them in a waterfall trap. But they're still they're very clear on what they want, and they want to see demos, and they want to see those deliverables. When you have other, commercial customers, it's very different. You kind of have to have internal product owners, as we were talking about, maybe doing market research and trying to figure out this is what customers want, or kind of making it up. But the team also can weigh in on that, if the product owner wants to be collaborative.
Yeah.
Okay, let's vote on this topic. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, we'll move on. And we're near the end of the hour, so we can at least get one more in the end of the hour. We can keep going for those that can stick around. All right, next one is, how do your orgs handle coaching people in specific disciplines?
Yeah, so that one was mine. We're having that discussion now where a lot of times the product manager doesn't have time to be mentoring the product owners, or the engineer doesn't, or the development manager doesn't have time. They've got a lot of responsibilities, don't have time to actually be giving the coaching for their discipline to their direct reports and that kind of thing. And as Agile coaches, we don't feel that it's our role to come in and say, okay, well, here, we're going to teach all the product owners how to be product owners, the product managers how to be product managers, engineers how to be engineers, designers how to be designers. We don't all have those skills. So I was just curious if anyone out there had other ways of up-leveling your groups.
I could just speak at it from a general perspective. Like the first thing that comes to my mind is where's the leadership on board at? Like, is anybody coming down the exec saying this is where we're going to go? This is the path. This is the organization. This is what we need you to do. And if you can't meet this, then it's going to be reflected. Like, are they being measured in their performance reports of how well their direct reports are doing? If not, then maybe that would be the first place I start. Get the community, get the executives on board, and be like, they need to be measured because they're not doing their job. You could always say time is an issue, but that always would be an issue. That's not right there as a mismanagement problem. That's okay. Maybe what the execs need to do is pay for a business coach or a leadership coach and have these individuals coached for, maybe 6 sessions or something like that, just on how to be better organizers, or bring in some outside training on what it is to be a better organizer or better leader. I had a conversation not too long ago as far as everybody gets into these positions because they're technically competent. They're able to do the job, and they did the job well, and they got recognized for that. And then they get in the seat, and now they're told, you did your job well, now have everybody else. But okay, do they know the difference in communication styles? Do they know how to interact with different temperaments? Are you actually taught as a leader on how to do these things, who you can be candid with? And that was one thing I praise the military for, is that we do get that different training and how do you handle a team and be effective in a team and know that you're not an individual anymore, but you are part of a team in some fashion. If you're leading that team, you need to be graded on and held accountable. So like first thing I think, I want to come in and start knife handing people, right? Like you will. But if that conversation doesn't happen, then that's a struggle right there if leadership doesn't enforce it.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. Two things that came to mind when you were asking the question, David, is communities of practice are huge, and we use those within my organization. So there's a Scrum Master community of practice, there's a product owner community of practice, there's a DevOps community of practice. So you can stand those up pretty much for any discipline, and and you can allow people to, I mean, at least, so I've talked about within my industry, charging and funding is also a big thing. So you have to make sure there's approval for that, but be like, this is part of your job, so you're then approved to do it. So you might get a leadership approval for that. That works pretty well for more of the process things, but it can work really for any discipline. I wouldn't say it's out of line, as you were talking about, to have a coach train product owners, but I do think it's too much of a stretch for a coach to train engineers and designers. But they can train the agile roles of Scrum Master and product owner, I think, just fine.
Yeah.
For the technics, go ahead.
Some of our coaches do have that product experience, but some don't, especially we call them ATF, Scrum Master level. Like a lot of them don't have any of that product experience, so it becomes more difficult for them. But I like what you're saying with community of practice, and I'd love to float an idea that we're tossing around internally to see what people think about it. And it kind of combines a couple of these things. And it was finding someone who has worked at the company in that role and been successful, and have them coach the other people who are in that discipline. So like have a rotating coaching role. And so say you have a product owner or product manager who has been very successful. They step out of actually managing a product and start kind of mentoring and coaching other product owners and product managers on how to do the role. And then maybe after 6 months or so, they rotate back to managing a product, and another product owner or product manager steps into that coaching role, because it gives them a chance to grow in coaching, as well as being able to help get everybody kind of on that same page.
Would the person taking on, it sounds like the person that will be taking on that coaching role will be taking on several people in that role. And so that kind of becomes their job instead of what they were doing. Yeah. And then they rotate out of it. Okay.
Yeah, which is why the rotation would be important there, so that they stay sharp on the actual skill set.
It's an interesting, yeah. So within my company, we do mentorships in the same kind of way, where you get hooked up with somebody that was just in your role or had the same title, and you can get connected that way, but they don't stop what they're doing. They just would accept you as their mentee, and then you meet with them with whatever frequency you want, and that's part of what they do. And that works pretty well. So if you set up some kind of mentorship program, that might work. I don't know if the rotating coaching, I don't think I've seen that before, but it's an interesting concept.
Used to call that special duties. We would do that all like, hey, you're gonna go do this, and I need you for 6 months to come over here, and then you go in there and do it. I think the only thing I would, if that it's worked in the military, I've seen it work, but you have to have the right person. So whatever that selection process looks like, are you going to put somebody in there that's going to be positive about it and not be like, man, this is not my job. It's not what I got hired for. Because you can have that negative person and they'll spread that negative energy. Versus the person like, yeah, this is a great opportunity. But now, are you going to take the time to actually get them coached on how to be an agile coach? Are they going to know? Are they going to be a mentor hat right now? Are they going to be a coaching hat right now? Sponsor? Like, do they know what hat to wear? And that coaching, to a degree, isn't just people as a coach, you want to extract the answers. Everybody has the answers in them, but so you're always taught to ask questions. But sometimes you need to give answers. So do they have that balance to not go in there and be the instructor, but to be a coach? So it could work, but I would almost have somebody that does that full time, that knows the skill sets, that knows how to change their communication style with their audience, whether it's one-on-one or one-on-many, and be able to convey that message. And a coach can convince one person, and train the trainer type of program, where you get one person involved and have them like they'll be your little start of your brush fire type thing. But,
cool. Yeah, y'all have given me some things to think about with it, so thank you for that.
I'm always a fan of tasers. So if people don't get on board, you just start tasing people in the neck, and you're like, you remember what happened last time you didn't get on board? Huh? All right.
That's the first time tasers have come up in Heart of Agile.
Yeah, really. I was going to say, what technique is that?
Don't tase me, bro.
To?
It's one step up after the knife hand.
That's
about. I was going to say, it's not collaborate. It must be deliver.
I think it would spur a lot of reflection.
I was looking. Have you read this book at all? Coaching Agile Teams.
Who wrote it?
This is written by Lisa Adkins.
No, but I've heard very good things about it.
There's different chapters in there, right? How do you talk to a product owner or manager, collaborator? There's different roles, and it gives you some advice. I mean, collectively, it could be another resource to look into and see what else you could extract that could be pertinent to your situation. But I know we're out of time, so I'll talking. Sorry.
Cool. Thanks for that.
All right, we'll hop to the last one, since we're.
Actually, that's my question. It looked like a good softball to finish for later, and I have to drop off. So I'm always collecting jokes. This looked like a way to, hey, has anybody else found some fun icebreakers? So I'm happy to postpone that.
Okay. We can share that in a Slack channel, which plug for that, by the way. Agile Denver does have a Slack channel. You can connect.
Yeah, I've been out there roaming around the last couple of days. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
There's job postings there, a lot of good stuff. So if you are looking for a job or you have a job, go to the jobs channel there. There's a spreadsheet there as well that we used to use here and now is wider. But yeah, I think, we'll call it there then. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We had some good discussions here. Thanks for contributing, engaging, everything.
Yeah, small group, but high quality.
Yeah, that's what we aim for. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks for letting me participate. Y'all have a good night.
All right.